I've always had a terrible memory. I'm talking like forgetting where I put my keys 5 minutes ago bad. When I saw a flyer for a clinical trial that claimed it could improve memory and brain function, I was intrigued. The trial was testing a new cognitive enhancement supplement called Neurexcel. I looked up the company and it seemed legit. People who took it were scoring off the charts on memory tests, and they paid $2,000 just to participate. Sign me up. The first few weeks were standard trial stuff. Baseline memory and IQ tests, vitals, blah blah. The pills looked normal enough. I had to take one with breakfast daily. About 3 weeks in, I started noticing a difference, like a big difference. I could recall tiny details from years ago. My mind felt sharp. It was working. Then things started getting weird. I'd get random flashes of memories that didn't feel like mine. A little girl I assumed was from some country in Europe, judging by the language I was hearing, and an old man driving down an endless highway. I shrugged it off at first, but over the next week, the strange memory flashes kept coming at odd times. They were vivid, emotional even, like I was reliving someone else's experiences firsthand. The girl again playing in a meadow. The old man driving but crying this time. I decided to call the trial doctor in case it was a side effect. He didn't seem concerned at all. Interesting, he muttered. Yes, very interesting. He told me to keep taking the pills and report back if anything changed. Okay then. But things did change. The memories got darker. Ominous. The little girl was wandering alone down a rural road at night. The old man sat parked on a bridge overlooking a river. Then they stopped being just flashes. They played out like full scenes from a movie in my mind. I'd close my eyes and suddenly see through someone else's eyes, feeling what they felt. I relived a woman fighting back against an attacker twice her size, knowing it was hopeless but fighting on in rage and terror. A dad saying goodbye to his children one last time before stepping off a balcony ledge. I was freaked out but couldn't stop them. These people's horrific last moments played on an endless loop in vivid detail. Why was this happening? In a particularly vivid vision, I was a teenager speeding down a winding road, drunk and reckless. I felt the adrenaline, his immigrant parents' disapproving faces flashing through his mind. Then headlights coming around the bend, the sickening crunch of metal on metal as everything went black. I jolted back to reality soaked in a cold sweat, breathing heavy. This was too real. I set a camera to record me while I slept, in case I could capture what was happening. Watching the footage back was unnerving. I would jerk around, whimper, and mumble things in foreign languages. Enough was enough. I called the trial doctor and said I was done. The side effects were too much. Strangely casual, he said no problem. Just come in the next morning for a final checkup. That night, the visions were more vivid than ever. A middle-aged woman doused in gasoline, a hand flicking a lighter as she screamed. An old woman curled up in bed, the door creaking open as a shadowy figure approached. I couldn't take it anymore. These were people's last tortured moments before death being forced into my mind. But how? Why? At the doctor's office the next morning, I could barely speak. He smiled and said the final brain scans would reveal a lot after my reaction to the treatment. Inside the MRI tube, my head throbbed. Then the searing visions kicked in again, worse than ever. A soldier cowering from enemy fire. A mother shielding her baby as bullets rained down. So much violence and pain. But deeper in the experiences now, I noticed odd similarities. The meadow the girl played in, the bridge the old man stopped at, all familiar in an eerie way. In the teenager's car crash, I glimpsed a sign for the clinical trial place whiz by the window seconds before impact. The middle-aged woman walked out of this very office before being burned alive. With dawning horror, I realized these weren't random people's memories, they were former trial subjects. Their last moments were force-fed into my mind. What had they done to me? The MRI machine grew claustrophobically small as I struggled to breathe. The doctor's voice crackled over the speaker, cruel and mocking. Just relax now. The final scan is almost complete. Thanks to your unique reaction, we've collected some fascinating new data. You should be proud to contribute. After all, what's one life compared to the progress of science? They were experimenting on us, using these pills to harvest our dying moments. I had to escape. I thrashed violently in panic, hitting the emergency stop button. The machine powered down, leaving me in sudden silence. In blind terror, I tore off the headphones and squeezed out of the tube, running for my life. I could hear the doctor shouting as I sprinted down the hallway and burst through the exit door. I didn't stop until I collapsed blocks away, wheezing and trembling. I tossed the remaining pills down a storm drain and caught the first flight home. The trial company kept calling me for days afterward. I ignored every attempt to contact me, trying desperately to push the horrific visions from my mind. I swore to myself I'd stay far away from that damned place, but I couldn't escape the memories burned into my brain. Visions of people's terrifying final moments continued flashing through my mind. Maybe they always would. I started using Lyft a few months ago when my car broke down. At first, I thought it was kind of weird having random drivers take me around, but overall my experiences were fine, and it saved me money on owning a car, so I stuck with it. Last night, though, I had the strangest and scariest Lyft ride of my life, and I can't stop thinking something very bad might have happened if I hadn't gotten out when I did. It started normally enough. I requested a pickup to go meet some friends at a bar downtown on a Saturday night. A driver named Steve accepted my ride within a minute or two. His profile pic looked like a normal enough guy in his 40s. Steve pulled up in a dark green SUV right on time. I hopped in the back seat and confirmed my destination. At first, we just made basic small talk about the weather and traffic. Pretty typical ride so far. A few minutes in, though, his phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. I politely averted my eyes as he answered to give him privacy. "Hey, babe," he greeted the caller, who I assumed was his wife. But his tone immediately shifted to annoyance as the woman spoke. "For the last time, we can't just dump it anywhere because that's illegal," Steve snapped back. I felt instant unease hearing this strange conversation. Dump what exactly? I peered cautiously up towards the rearview mirror, but Steve didn't seem to notice as he was focused on arguing with the mystery woman. "I keep telling you, I'm handling it." "No, that won't work either. Just let me deal with it when I get home," he shouted, clearly agitated by her persistence. My mind was racing, imagining what shady dealings this guy could be mixed up in. Drugs? A body? My fingers subtly gripped the door handle, ready to bail if needed. Steve sighed loudly. "Look, I've got a customer right now, I'll take care of it later," he said in a softer tone, glancing at me briefly in the mirror. I pretended to be distracted by my phone, my heart pounding. The woman seemed to reluctantly hang up after a few more hushed exchanges. An awkward silence filled the car, until Steve finally spoke again. "Sorry about that. The wife needs me to get rid of... pick up something from a friend after this ride. Mind if we make a quick stop?" I hesitated before answering. Nothing about this felt right, but I was also too nervous to confront him directly, without knowing what he was up to. Sure, no problem," I muttered, hoping to get more clues. "You're the best. Thanks for understanding," Steve said cheerfully, back to his friendly chauffeur mode as if that bizarre call never happened. We drove a few more minutes, the bright city nightlife fading behind us as we got into a sketchier industrial area. I considered pretending to get sick and asking to be let out, but before I could make a move, the SUV pulled up beside a chain-link fence. "Just sit tight, I'll only be a minute," Steve said, hastily getting out and disappearing into the shadows of the dimly lit warehouse property. My mind was telling me to flee, but morbid curiosity kept me in place. I strained to follow Steve's movements, watching him exchange words with a shadowy figure by an idling truck, too dark to make out what they were passing between them. Before I could discern anything useful, Steve was already striding back to the SUV looking amped up. He slapped the passenger seat as he got in, making me jump. "All right, that's taken care of. Let's get you to your destination." As we pulled away, I caught a glimpse of the white truck driving off in the opposite direction. What the hell was my driver involved with here? He didn't seem to notice my obvious tension, humming along to the radio as we got back on the main roads. Part of me knew I should confront Steve directly and demand to be let out immediately, but I had to be strategic too. If he was hauling contraband or involved with dangerous people, who knew how he'd react? I chose my words carefully, asking in as casual a tone as I could muster. "Hey man, any chance we could actually swing by an ATM first? I forgot I need cash for the bar." Steve's eyes flashed towards me in the mirror, narrowing slightly. "I thought you were meeting friends?" he asked. My heart sank. He had remembered my exact destination somehow. Thinking fast, I covered, "Oh yeah, just figured I'd get some money in case we go somewhere else after." I held my breath, awaiting his response. Steve was silent for a beat, and I suddenly realized his hands were gripping the wheel very tightly. Finally, he replied calmly, "I'm afraid not. Like I said, I need to get you to your destination first." Panic started setting in as I realized getting out of this ride might not be so simple. I glanced at the door handles, planning my escape. Before I could make a move, Steve flicked the locks closed, a faint clunk sealing me in. Eyes drilling into me in the mirror, he spoke again, that friendly tone replaced with something much more sinister. "Here's the thing. Right now, you know too much about my business for your own good. But you seem like a nice guy, so I'm going to offer you a deal." I nodded silently, not wanting to agitate him further. Steve went on, "Your choices tonight are simple. Either you keep your mouth shut about our little detour here, forget all this nonsense, and go have fun with your friends." He trailed off for a few agonizing seconds before finishing his thought. "Or I can drive us somewhere much more private to continue our conversation. Permanently." The threat hung in the air as I sat paralyzed in the back seat, his eyes glaring at me. Finally, I muttered, "Got it, the first option sounds good, forget I saw anything." Steve held my gaze intently before replying, "Smart choice, let's just put this behind us." He turned his focus back to the road, the rest of the drive continuing in tense silence. I've never felt relief like when we finally pulled up at the bar and he ended the ride. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. Part of me wanted to run straight to the police and tell them everything that happened. But Steve's veiled warning rang fresh in my mind. Maybe going to the cops would just cause more trouble with these clearly dangerous people. As much as it made me anxious, I decided to keep tonight's bizarre incident to myself, for now at least. Over the next couple of weeks, I avoided Lyft unless completely necessary. I even considered moving in case Steve tracked me down, but so far nothing seemed out of the ordinary, and slowly I started chalking it up to just a weird misunderstanding. But last night, as I was heading home from a late-night grocery run, that creeping unease came rushing back in full force. Halfway down my block, I saw that familiar green SUV parked on the side of the road. No lights on, just idling silently beside the curb. My hands shook and nearly dropped my bags. There was no mistaking it. That was definitely Steve's vehicle from the ride. What was he doing here outside my building weeks later? I approached cautiously, peering into the darkened windows as I passed. I could barely make out the shape of a large figure sitting in the driver's seat. Too dark to see his face clearly, but every instinct told me it was Steve staking out my home, waiting for me. I walked faster, pulse racing. As I neared the front steps, the SUV's headlights suddenly flicked on, momentarily blinding me. When my vision cleared, it was pulling away from the curb, but not before I glimpsed the driver, Steve, unmistakably, staring at me with an eerie grin. I ran inside and locked the door, hands shaking. That was no coincidence. Was he just trying to scare me into keeping quiet? Or was there a more sinister motivation? It seemed naive now to think I could just ignore my unsettling Lyft encounter. This guy knew where I lived, nowhere felt safe anymore. I didn't sleep at all that night, hyper-focused on every small sound. But morning came uneventfully, at least. Still jittery from the SUV sighting, I decided to go stay with family out of state for a little while. I knew Steve couldn't trail me forever. A break might be good to clear my head too and figure out if I should go to the authorities. The weeks with relatives were calming, almost making the creepy lift incident feel distant like a bad dream. For a while, I succeeded in focusing on work, friends, and life back home instead of glancing over my shoulder everywhere. But life has a way of jolting you out of a false sense of security. Last night, I was leaving a restaurant when I noticed that now familiar green SUV parked across the street. Steve was half hidden in shadows inside, but I immediately recognized him. Our eyes locked for a split second before I sprinted to my car. My hands trembled so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. As I sped away, the SUV pulled out and followed uncomfortably close. I took random turns trying to lose him, but the vehicle stayed right on my tail. I pulled into a police station lot, the SUV zooming past just as I came to a stop. I watched Steve glare at me through the window as he kept driving. I considered going in to report him, but held off for now. Today, I can't ignore the sinking realization. This isn't just going to go away no matter how much I try to wish it away or pretend it's in my head. Maybe I know too much, or maybe just enough to make this creep retaliate if I don't stay quiet. All I know is I'm now constantly looking over my shoulder wherever I go, watching for that SUV. Steve clearly wants me to remember he's lurking out there, and something tells me his polite offer to forget our encounter has long expired. I'm almost certain I've become entangled in something far darker than just an awkward lift ride at this point. There's an unspoken threat following me, and one way or another, this sinister game of cat and mouse will end soon. I just hope I'm not the mouse that ends up getting caught. When I saw the ad for Spirit Chat pop up on my phone, I just chuckled and kept scrolling. An app to talk to ghosts. Yeah, right. I didn't believe in any of that paranormal stuff, but the ad kept showing up everywhere over the next few days, nagging me to download it. Communicate with loved ones beyond the grave, it proclaimed. I tried to ignore it, but my curiosity got the better of me. What if it did work? Even a little bit. I had to at least try it. The app was free, so I figured I had nothing to lose. The setup process was easy enough. Make a username, enter your location, and agree to some terms and conditions. Seemed like any other app. Once registered, there was just a single button that read, Open Portal. Taking a deep breath, I tapped it. A chat window opened, a blinking cursor awaiting my message. My hands were actually shaking a bit as I typed, Hello. And then, nothing. Just dead silence. Well, I knew this was a hoax all along. I was about to delete the app when suddenly, a reply popped up that made my heart skip a beat. Jake, is that you? That's my name, Jake. There's no way this app could have known that. I never put my real info in the sign-up. Okay. This was getting creepy now. My hands were literally shaking as I typed back, Who is this? It's Grandpa Jake, came the reply. Grandpa Mike died last year. Heart attack out of nowhere. If there was anyone I hoped to contact, it was him. Prove it's you, I said. The next message totally freaked me out. The app knew things only Grandpa would know, like his secret fishing spot at the lake, and how he always snuck me extra cookies when Grandma wasn't looking. By now I had goosebumps all over. I was chatting with my dead grandfather. I miss you so much, I typed with tears in my eyes. I love you, Jake. But you need to delete this app. It's not safe, he warned. Strange, but I figured maybe he knew something I didn't. I kept using the app anyway over the next few weeks. Grandpa and I had some really amazing conversations. It felt like I was getting real closure and comfort from him. Then one night things got dark. I opened the app and asked if Grandpa was there. A message shot back right away saying, Help me. Okay, weird. I asked, Grandpa, are you all right? The replies came in quick succession then. Not Grandpa. Delete app. He's lying. Get out. Now I was utterly freaked. I typed, Who are you then? The app glitched out and closed itself. When I reopened it, the messages were gone. Guess it was just a tech issue. But after that night, the tone of the chats changed. Grandpa sounded cold, almost angry. When I asked what was wrong, he'd reply, Nothing. Strange. Then I began getting messages even when I wasn't using the app. Push notifications would pop up out of nowhere at all hours saying things like, "He's here" or "Run." What the hell? Who was here and why run? I stopped replying, thinking maybe I could force the app to leave me alone. But the creepy messages kept coming at random times. "He sees you. Don't trust him. Get out." Yeah, I was done with this. Time to delete it. But each time I tried, the app would glitch and close, stopping me from uninstalling it. Great. Things only got more bizarre from there. I started hearing whispers around my house, seeing shadows move at night and feeling cold spots in rooms. Strange coincidences, I'm sure, but unnerving. Then one night I woke up to see a notification from the app on my glowing phone screen across the dark room. Hands shaking, I grabbed the phone and read the message. "He's in your house." Okay, no way was I sleeping after that. I leapt out of bed and turned all the lights on. I was considering going to a hotel when more alerts came through. Too late. "Run. He's behind you." I practically jumped out of my skin and dropped the phone. Whipping around, I scanned the room, but nothing was there. Must be the app glitching, I told myself. Suddenly, the bedroom door slammed shut by itself. Then the lights all clicked off at once, plunging me into darkness. Now I could hear a creaking noise, shuffling footsteps creeping up behind me. I shouldn't have downloaded the app, Jake. I swung my fists and fought with all my might against the phantom grip on my arms. The next few moments were a blur of flailing wildly in the dark until I finally broke free and smashed through the door in sheer terror. I ran down the hall and jumped down the stairs, nearly breaking my neck. Didn't look back until I was outside hyperventilating by the curb. I jumped in my car and floored it. As I sped off into the night, my phone lit up one last time on the passenger seat, delivering a final push notification from the cursed app. "He won't let you leave."